Today with a little story. It's the Popeyes fried chicken story is what it's been dubbed. I don't know about you if you've noticed that in Northeast and Central Wisconsin, this franchise of Louisiana style fried chicken have popped up all over the place. And when they open, they're extraordinarily popular. And there's usually a line streaming out into the street for blocks, and it can take an hour to get there. Well, one Saturday in, I think, mid-December, my boyfriend and I are like everybody else. We try to avoid going to the grocery store as often as possible because of COVID. And we'd kind of taken it a little bit too far. We had literally nothing to eat in the house. So we thought we'd finally go out to the grocery store. And on the way there, you go right by this Popeyes, right? And so we thought, you know what, we've been doing chores all day, we're tired. Why don't we just stop there? Because it doesn't look like there's much of a line right now. And we both love this Southern fried chicken once in a while. And so we'll just get that, take it to the grocery store, bring it home and heat it up or something like that. So we circled around the block and got into the entrance, and because they've been so popular, they've hired somebody to stand at the entrance or out on the street to direct traffic, because often, like I said, this line goes down a block or two. We were lucky, we got to get right into the parking lot. Well, once you get there, the way they work this, and it's not that big a parking lot, relatively speaking, but it's like this spiral. You slowly queue all the way around the restaurant before you come back to basically where you started. And there's the little speaker box that you place your order in the menu, and then you go up to the window and pay and get your order. And then you hope that somebody's going to leave you a little space to cut through this queue again so that you can leave. So we got in the queue. It was a beautiful day. We were having a good conversation, listening to the radio, and there was this big SUV in front of me, so I couldn't really see anything in front of it. And I would just kind of note that every time it moved up one spot, we would just move up one more spot. And eventually, after about half an hour, we'd made our way around the building. And it got to the point where the SUV placed their order and moved on, but I was so engrossed in the conversation that I just absentmindedly followed them and went right and followed next into the line in the queue. And as soon as I did it, I knew that I'd done something wrong because I'd never ordered. And the car behind me had already pulled up to place their order. And there was a stream of traffic on the other side and the building on this side. So I was stuck. There was nothing I could do. I had to sit there, and we didn't know what to do. We kind of panicked, right? And in the meantime, I could tell that there was this teenager kind of looking out from the window where you get your order, kind of with this really perplexed look on their face, like, what are these people doing? So we were stepping up to a very embarrassing moment. And then I thought, well, this is okay. You know, big deal. All we want is like a 12-piece chicken thing. I can just order it at the window, pay them like I normally would, and we'll just be on our way. Well, when we got to the window and it opened up and she gives me this strange look, and I had to explain in my embarrassment that I was spacing out and just went right by the window. She said, no, I can't take your order here. The manager says you have to come in the store. And so I thought, oh my God, after waiting over half an hour to get to this point, now she wants me to cut through the line and go over to the place where everybody parks to get, when you've ordered online, and go in and pick it up. I now have to go do that. And I was just angry. I'd had enough. I couldn't stand it. I don't like waiting in lines anyway. That's one of my pet peeves. And I kind of lost it. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going in to get that chicken. And Scott turns to me and is like, why are you acting like a 6-year-old? I'm like, just because I've had enough. So I find if Scott hadn't been in the car, I would not have gone in. I got to tell you that. But yes, I crept over embarrassingly and parked where you're supposed to park. And then I had to put on a mask and get out of the car and go inside. And of course, everybody in there is looking at me because they thought I was in to get a pickup order. I didn't have a pickup order. So this is a new restaurant, right? So they are not used to people walking in and keying in the order like the old days, and you stand there and wait to get your chicken. And so I had to explain over and over again that I'm crazy and can't remember what I'm doing when I go through the drive-through and had to get it. So it was, to me, extremely embarrassing, and I was mortified that I had to admit that I'm pretty absent-minded. At the end of the day, we got our chicken, all shall be well. We got to Woodman's, we got our groceries, we had a good rest of the day. But it was just an example of where it was my breaking point. It's a really silly example, but I was so tired of things not working the way they once worked, where you could just go in, get your chicken, sit down, eat, have a good time, leave, no big deal. And so I think it was just my COVID moment where I had just had it with all the changes that's going on. So I thought that would be a great story to lead off with today for a sermon that's about resilience through change. So to make it theologically appropriate, I've given you 5 spiritual paths, theological point of views, philosophies, what have you, along the way here. So I don't know if you picked up on them. I'll give you the clues. So the first one was the gathering song, All Things Shall Be Well. It's an example of Christian mysticism. Actually, I think a great example of Christian mysticism. Julian of Norwich was lived in the 14th century, and she lived in an abbot, and she spent a lot of her adult life in solitude, in fasting, in prayer and meditation, because she had a belief that God was a symbol, a metaphor for ultimate love. And it wasn't just this abstract idea to her. She had had a lot of transcendent experiences, out-of-body experiences, visions, where she believed herself to be encompassed, surrounded like this huge giant hug, like maybe this sweater I've got on today, of just God's ultimate love surrounding her. And so that her most famous quote is, all things shall be well. And it's really that an ultimate trust in God's love, a trust that all suffering would end and be resolved. In my opinion, it's about as Buddhist as Christianity ever gets, with that quote from Christian mysticism. Well, the second one is Greek Stoicism. It was much more obvious. It came out of Marco Sander and his At Straight Mind, the psychologist. He even put it up on the screen, that it was a belief among the Greek Stoics that both good and bad were impermanent, that we should make the most of the positives in our life because we know they will not last forever. And as he said, it also means that we can endure the negative things because we know that those are also not permanent. The third I shared with you is the most common and obvious that people think of when we're talking about impermanence. And that was the quote, the Buddhist quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, the 20th century Buddhist leader from Vietnam. He talked about anicca, or the word impermanence, and it's the most important of the 3 marks of existence because it crosses everything. And he talks a lot about it. Now, the other 2 marks of existence are anatta, the concept that there's no self, that there's nothing that makes me unique, there's nothing that makes you unique in the world. And dukkha, which is that we all suffer because we do not understand the other 2. Now, this concept of no self, that there's nothing that makes me uniquely unique, kind of is a good segue into the 4th one, religious naturalism. Now, religious naturalism is all about what Peter Mayer's imagery is in My Soul, of being one with the universe. That yes, we are unique in some sense, but in a broader sense, we are all stardust. We're all part of the universe. And that change is simply part of this eternal course of the universe. And the 5th one I wanted to live up was a little more subtle, and it was way in the very beginning, humanism. Claudia Schmidt's song, Make It Across the Road. And it's really an acknowledgement that humans are always striving for change. We're always seeking to get across that road despite the perils, even if we're not really sure what's on the other side. The expression, the grass is always greener on the other side, kind of comes from that human need for change and always looking for something better, perhaps. And she talks about a mother's love, and it's a metaphor that we should look out for each other to help us all make sure we cross that road safely. So you have it there. You've got Christian mysticism, Greek Stoicism, Buddhism, religious naturalism, and humanism. Think about those frameworks as you think about the intense change that we're living through right now. You all know it. But when I wrote this, I thought, what are the things that I thought were permanent that suddenly were impermanent that surprised me? Remember when this all started back in March? What was the first thing that became impermanent? Toilet paper. We couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. And since then, that was just the leading indicator for all the goods and services and people that are in short supply. It seems like nothing works the way it once did. Either you go into a store and they have maybe a third of the supplies that they had. Services, you can't just show up and do something. You have to make an appointment. And people are either getting sick or caring for someone that's sick, or I'd never even thought about how many people have children who now can't go to school and are staying at home. So then therefore the parents or the guardians are also at home. So it just made everything change. And it all started with toilet paper. Voting. I thought voting was pretty impermanent. I thought we were going to have, we would take it for granted. But think about the ridiculously long lines in April, especially Milwaukee, where people stood out in the snow to vote, because I didn't think about it before. The polling workers typically are in the category that are the most vulnerable to COVID. And then the mail-in ballot disasters. In Appleton, they found a couple of pallets of ballots that never got mailed out. They found them in the back of the post office. So people in Oshkosh and Appleton never got the mail-in ballots they requested. So we had to do this mail-in and advance voting rapid ramp up for August elections and then again for November. And I was a poll worker for both of those elections. And then that was all this confusion, all these people that used to vote at the church down at the corner now had to be consolidated and all get in their car and drive to a new location so that we could share services with one another. A lot of confusion and something we all thought was pretty permanent. And then unfortunately, there's the brick and mortar businesses. There's a lot of them, like bookstores, that were already weakened by online retailing. But now it's restaurants, it's in services we thought would never be impacted by online retailers. Then there's the ability to physically gather. I didn't think that was impermanent. And it made us all decide very quickly, like people are impermanent, physical presence of people. Who's in your bubble and who's not? In the beginning, it seemed like it was going to be a month or two, and now it's turning into over a year of who's in your COVID bubble. And finally, our fellowships. We all started out separately, and in our own ways, we went to virtual services overnight. We've pretty much eliminated in-person gatherings. There's no in-person small groups. There's no in-person pastoral care, or occasionally I'll see people in my office and we sit way far away from each other after I sanitize the whole room and we keep masks on, which I have to tell you, it's an odd way to do pastoral care when you can't see the nonverbals and all you see is somebody's eyes. Or our beloved after service coffee hour chats have disappeared. We've tried to substitute the breakout sessions for that. No meetings at all. Who would have thought that that aspect of our fellowships was not permanent? So then I started thinking, well, which changes will be with us for a while and are now going to feel like they're permanent? I think we all would agree there's this huge shift to the virtual world that was already starting but just got accelerated. There are going to be less brick and mortar stores permanently. And then these services that can't be replaced online, restaurants, salons, car repairs, where there's small business owners that probably didn't have the capital to survive a year with such slow business, they're not going to come back for a while until others maybe replace them. Working from home. There's this huge shift I heard in housing demands now that people are obviously looking for homes with an extra bedroom, an extra room where they can work from home. And if you are in a business where working from home might become the norm forever, People are buying up, vacation homes so they can live by the ocean or a lake and still do their work in the city like they once commuted to. I think that's going to stay. Then there's voting and government transactions. We figured this out. It's probably going to go online. And the last one is this continued collaboration with our fellowships. Look at this service this morning. There's 4 fellowships here. We've had 5 sometimes. We've had visitors come in from their lake cabins, their second homes once they retired, people that are snowbirds that normally would not be involved this time of year are here. And we're doing it across 4 different fellowships. You may not know, but for the last couple of months, the 4 presidents of our congregations have been meeting to talk about where's the win-win? Where can we collaborate on services so that in the future, our fellowships are stronger, both financially and programming-wise. And I'm pretty sure in the future, we're going to have the virtual and the physical mixed together. It'll become really common for us to maybe a small group of us, maybe 8 of us are together, and there's 3 or 4 also included that are Zooming in so that we can be one group no matter where we are geographically located. So whether you want to contemplate all the change that 2020 has brought from the perspective of Christian mysticism, Greek Stoicism, Buddhism, religious naturalism, humanism, or, where you use your uniquely Unitarian Universalist path, I think you should think about it because this change is helping to build resiliency. Accepting change is inevitable and is healthy. And out of all this suffering may come some benefits. In the end, I believe we will be more resilient as individuals, as congregations, and even as a Unitarian Universalist movement. So to close, I'm going to bring you back to Mackenzie Coakley's poem, The End of It, What 2020 Taught Me. How in darkness and uncertainty our resilience truly shines. How when we let go of expectations, our priorities realign. Though in this fall from normalcy, we're left questioning what we once knew. Let us be reminded that hope and kindness are contagious too. Indeed, maybe those are the only 2 things that are permanent. So may we all let go of expectations and catch a good case of hope and kindness. Amen.